Hey guys, welcome to Did You Get That on Film? On this podcast, we deep dive into horror movies, and so it is full of explicit content as well as spoilers. Please be advised. Now, let's get to the show.
This is another episode of Did You Get That on Film, where we discuss characters in terrible situations we would never find ourselves in. I am here again, DP, your host, with my girl, somebody who understands that if something is freaky, she's out the front door. What's up, Ruth?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. It's another episode.
What are we doing?
Today we are doing House LLC.
Spooky.
I know. This is written and directed by Stephen Cognetti, and it was released in 2015. So this is the first movie in the Hell House trilogy. So there's Hell House 2, The Abaddon Hotel, and Hell House 3, Lake of Fire. And this movie was always supposed to be a trilogy. This particular movie was never supposed to be like just a standalone story. So the director has stated that he said, quote, one movie just divided into 3 acts, and each movie is its own act. So he further commented that he found it really easy to write the second and third parts because he just knew where he wanted to go from the get-go. So that is, I think, pretty obvious because it leaves a lot of questions on the table, right? It's a movie that's like, well, I wish that they'd expounded upon that a little bit more.
I don't know, because I watched it and I thought it was pretty one and done.
Cut and dry. So, what version of the movie did you watch? We should have discussed this prior to recording because I saw this movie for the first time years ago. I don't know. I saw it maybe in like 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch the sequels, and I've admittedly still never seen the sequels, but I just watched Hell House LLC. It came up on Prime Video, and sometimes I just like to scroll and just find free scary movies, and I'll just watch anything that comes up. But I didn't realize until this time going back that there's a director's cut of this movie.
No, I didn't watch the director's cut. I don't think so at all. Because I watched the one that was on Shudder.
Right. Well, they're both on Prime,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't notice it until I typed it in again, and it popped up, and it was like director's cut, and I was like, oh shit, we didn't really discuss that. I didn't know there was a director's cut. I'll talk about it a little bit later because I did end up watching just some of the scenes that were in the director's cut that weren't in this movie, and it really does add a little bit of context to certain things. There's some deleted scenes that I wish maybe he hadn't deleted, but we'll like talk about it when we get there. They are actually, I noticed they're releasing a Hell House LLC Origins movie, The Carmichael Manor. So that's a thing. So if anybody is interested.
What's the Carmichael Manor? Is that from the second one or the third one?
I don't know.
I need a requel. Look, if you're going to do a movie, do a requel so I can only have to watch the first one. Shit.
Right. I don't know. So this is like some origin shit. Maybe this, I feel like because this original movie was like a trilogy, like it was always supposed to be a trilogy, this is just some new shit. Like I think that this is going to be something that we just have no idea what the hell is going on.
Like, shit. Look, my queue is already high enough. I ain't trying to...
I know, just add shit to it. Before we start the movie, I know typically our format is we'll do at the end like a tally of the kills. We'll typically do a kill count, call them out. This movie, it's a found footage movie. I would say that if you're not into found footage films, you may not like this. But I do have to say that as far as found footage horror goes, I thought it was a good one. I did think it was well done. It's very cheaply made, so don't go in expecting a masterpiece. But I like it a lot. But because of the way that it's filmed, it's like pretty chaotic as those films tend to be. We're not going to do a kill count in this movie. Like I'll give you a tally at the end, but I'm not going to call it the kills as they come because it's just kind of all over the place. So, with that being said, I guess let's get into it. The movie opens with some on-screen text. It's apparently a documentary on the mysterious events surrounding the 2009 Halloween haunted house tour tragedy at the House LLC haunted house. So we see a woman, and we learn that this is a documentarian. Her name is Diane Graves, and she is being filmed walking around what we see is the Abaddon Hotel. It's like all boarded up, and she's trying to find a way to break in. This is going to be one of those moments where it starts at the end and then goes back to the beginning. So we'll come back to Diane later with that. But then we get some footage and they're interviewing people for this documentary, right? And so they're interviewing them about what happened at the hotel that night. And really, like, nobody can give any details on the events of this tragedy except that it was totally chaotic. And the fact that I guess, like, the government in this town has totally covered up what the issues were. I think they just said that there was, like, some technical malfunctions or, like, a gas leak or something. They're just kind of not really letting the public know. So that's why this documentary is being made, because they're really trying to dig deeper into this mysterious event. So we then get some news footage, and this is acting as kind of like an exposition dump. Through this news report, we learned that a small abandoned hotel in Abaddon, New York, it had been transformed into a haunted house attraction, and it was supposed to be running tours over like a few weeks, over the month of October. But on the opening night, there were multiple deaths. And so we get some on-screen text, and this is reiterating this fact. So it's giving us the date of the event. It's October 8th, 2009. We then learn through some interviewees and on-screen text that there was a video that was shot that night, October 9th, the opening night, by some of the patrons of the haunted house. And most of the information that anybody knows from the events that took place there come from this video that was shot by this tour goer, and they uploaded it to YouTube. So then we are shown that footage, that YouTube footage. So we see it's a girl, and she's with her friend who is filming, and they're walking through the haunted house, and they're experiencing some pretty like normal jump scares, but things start to get a little weird. So you see a clown just like book it out. He's gone. And so they're like, that was kind of weird. And then like a little bit farther up, you see this girl running out, and she runs through like a backstage kind of exit area, and they're like, was that supposed to happen? Like, that's weird. So they're like a little concerned, but it's when they reach the basement area that they start to notice people are panicking, they're screaming, and people are just like clamoring to turn back and run out of the basement area. And so that's when everything just kind of descends into chaos. People are running around and screaming. There's workers that are trying to direct people out of the building. Stuff is falling over. People are falling over. We see emergency personnel arriving on the scene. And then we cut from that back to a news report, and it's showing bodies being removed from the hotel. We also learned that there was a single 911 call from the hotel that night of the incident, and they let us hear the audio of that 911 call. And there's not really much to it, but a girl is crying and she's asking for the police, just like a lot of static, and she's just saying something about their something into the walls. And so the people being interviewed were like, that offered like no clarity to the situation. Like, if anything, that made it even more suspicious about what was happening in there. So then we learned from this one interviewee with all the tea that there was a photographer who actually broke into the hotel and he took pictures and then he put them on the internet. We then get to talk to that photographer, and we learn that there was a gag order placed on everyone involved with the case, and everything was very hush-hush. So then he decided that he just had to break in because he's like, I need to know the truth. And we see the pictures that he took, and it totally negates this story that the government has told everybody, the city officials or whatever, that there was like a gas leak or a malfunction or something, because there's blood everywhere. There's tons of blood on the floors, there's blood on the walls. In one of the photos, you can see this huge blood like smear as if somebody was drug away. And the photographer says that so he got to the basement area because he knew that things like had to have happened in the basement, right? But he looked down there and it looks like the door had been like blown off its hinges. And he was like, absolutely
Absolutely
not.
not.
He said this was dumb coming in here, but that would be
Stupid.
would be
Stupid.
suicidal. Right? So he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna be smart in this moment. I'm not gonna go into the basement, which is probably the best thing he could have done, right? So, but he just like points the camera down the stairs and takes some pictures. And so we get some on-screen text, and it's explaining that Sarah Havel was a member of the House LLC, the people that toured putting on this haunted house. So she actually reached out to Diane, the documentarian, and she agreed to an interview. And apparently she has like been MIA, disappeared. Nobody's heard from her since the incident. And so of course everybody is like interested to talk to anybody that made it out of this incident alive. So Diane's like clamoring to talk to her, right? So she said that she's been staying with family, and when Diane asked her how she's been coping, she says she's in a better place now. And we'll get back to that later. So Sarah says that she's like, it's actually a good thing that they're kind of covering up what happened at this house, because she said if people knew what actually happened, it would be hard for them to deal with. And Diane doesn't really know what to make of this statement, and she asks Sarah if she can take them back to the beginning and just kind of walk them through what happened, because it's not really making sense to her. And Sarah says, I can do you one better. And she pulls out a bag full of videotapes. And apparently everything in the house was taped. And Sarah got in and took all these tapes before authorities could get to them. So Mitchell is a member of Diane's documentary crew, and he actually takes the film to go start reviewing it as Diana starts to interview Sarah. And now we, as the audience, are going to get to watch the Hell House footage, which, according to some on-screen text, took place between August 23rd, when they first arrived at the Abaddon Hotel to start flipping it to be a haunted house, to October 8th, the night of the event. And so that was like essentially the cold opening of the movie. And now we're getting to like the real meat of the movie, the footage of the event. That was a mouthful.
It's a lot.
It's a lot leading up. It's a lot of exposition really quick that they're kind of dumping on you. But the film opens up very similarly to how these films open. You know, it's innocuous enough. They open up with our protagonists, right? And they're always happy and having fun, because these are the times they're going to look back on after they've all been killed.
Look back on.
Right.
This is the last days of your life, dude.
Right. And so they always, in movies like this, they always, like, at the end, after everybody's dead and dying and, like, suffering, they show clips of when they were happy. And then we see in the movie just to be like, remember when these people were happy? That's the footage we're getting now. Okay. So they're in a car and we are meeting for the first time. So it's Paul, Sarah, her boyfriend Alex, who is the kind of owner manager of Hell House LLC, Andrew McNamara, who everybody just calls Mac, and Tony. And these are the people that make up the Hell House crew. And they're just kind of having fun, laughing, doing some like movie trivia. Sarah's like an idiot and just can't fucking guess I Am Legend. I don't know.
Hitch? Is it Hitch?
Why would it be Hitch? You stupid bitch.
It was very the first Texas Chainsaw. They're always in a car and they're always driving
Right.
and they're always happy and it's always an idiot.
There's always an idiot, but they're always like, it's everything so innocent and fun until it's not. That's this.
That's this.
So after Mac and Alex stop to like get in a fight on the side of the road, the group arrives to the abandoned Abaddon Hotel. So this is where they will be hosting their annual haunted house. The hotel is in really rough shape, right? Because it's apparently been abandoned for years. It has no electricity. And Alex is going to be a character that we do not root for in this movie. You're supposed to root for like the protagonist. I never root for Alex. I never want him to win. I hate this fucking character. He suggests, hey, let's just spend the night here. And everybody is like,
No, 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 no.
they say, no. That's basically like the crew looks at him like, have you lost your fucking mind? So they're not sleeping there tonight, right? There's no fucking electricity. But we kind of, listening to them talk, we kind of learned that they typically do these haunted houses because they've been doing them for years in the New York area. So in the 5 boroughs, just like they did one in Queens that they bring up a lot. And so they're like, it's a little weird, that they're doing it at this hotel that's like 40 minutes out of the city, I think. And so Alex is really trying to sell everybody on it. Alex is the one that like chose this location and he's really pushing for this. He thinks it's going to be great. So they're just like doing some exploring. And as Paul and Tony are exploring the attic, they start to get this crazy static on their walkie-talkies, but they ignore it, right? Alex calls them down to the basement. They're going down there, and on their way down, Paul is walking with the camera just like kind of freely in his hand, so he can watch his step, so he's not looking through the lens. But we, as the audience, we see in a quick like passing shot, it's a hooded figure watching them from one of the bedrooms. It's really like a blink and you miss it shot. But the movie makes sure that you don't miss it, right? Because the movie is like, wait, did you guys see that? So they actually like slow down the footage and rewind it and pause it on the shot of this like figure. And I thought that was kind of silly.
They do that often though.
They do that often because they don't want you to miss it. Because they're like, well, the movie's like pretty low budget and this is like all we have. So if you miss these tiny things, it's not going to be scary. I felt like it was scarier that we saw it like quickly. I wish they would have just left it like that, but this is a thing that they repeat very often in the movie.
This is their style of directing.
Yeah, and that's fine.
It's not.
I like
It is. It's there. It's theirs.
it's theirs.
It's differently different.
Yes, and I appreciate it.
I didn't.
Well, because I was like, well, if I had missed it, thanks. If I wasn't watching, I appreciate it. They're thinking about us. So they make sure that the audience sees the hooded figure there. So already, I mean, from the jump, they've been in this house 6 minutes and already there's some spooky shit happening, right? So next, the whole crew gathers in the basement to go over some of the haunted house planning because they're thinking the basement is going to be like the focal point of the house. Alex mentioned that they've been getting some weird noises through the walkie-talkies and Tony needs to fix that because Tony is like the electronics guy.
Right.
So they also notice all these Bibles strewn across the floor and there's pentagrams and upside down crosses like drawn on the walls and stuff. And Sarah is like kind of concerned, right? Because these are all very much red flags, right?
Glaring red flag.
Glaring red flags. I mean, to me, they would be really huge red flags. And I would be upset that Alex chose this place without consulting with us first. But everybody just kind of dismisses her concerns because they're like, well, fuck, we're building a haunted house. It's supposed to be creepy, right? This shit is free. Might as well use it.
Get what you pay for.
Right. Right. But I'm like, you can't really, like, had this place not been haunted, you can't really argue with their logic, right? They're like, this is some good shit. So, in between clips from the video footage that they're playing back, we are seeing Sarah being interviewed by Diane. And we learned that it took about a week to get the power on to the hotel. And after they got the power on, they started sleeping there. Because it is a hotel after all. So I guess that makes sense. I don't think I would have, but
Just on the idea that like it was abandoned. You know how I feel about rats.
it's abandoned. Rats, roaches. You have like the electricity on, but I don't think that they had like air conditioning. I get it. It's like in New York in October, but it's like, I don't know.
I do know. I ain't doing that shit.
Right.
We never had friends who like we just be listening to.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
I have never like I
Been a
love
follower.
right. So it's like I love my friend because you're my only friend.
I got a whole bunch of friends.
Right. So you might maybe you have I don't know, some friends that are like this. I just would never. You could be like, "Oh, come on, let's do this," and it's like I love you, but at a certain point, I'd be like, "No." I'd be like, "Have you lost your fucking mind?" And it would be like a friendship ruiner. Like if you were like, "We can't be friends anymore unless you do this," I'd be like,
Bye.
right. That really sucks as I'm like driving away, waving out the window. And like, it was fun.
But I'm the kind of person who I'll ask you once, you say no, okay.
Right. This is
I ain't a begging person, and I do have like I've had friends. I have friends who are very big on like being in charge, but they also know like because I make it very clear. I'm gonna do whatever I want, and if I don't like it, I ain't gonna do that.
right.
And I'm not staying in no abandoned ass hotel.
I'm not staying in an abandoned hotel. And they bring up, because the question on everyone's mind is like, why the fuck did these people stay here? Right?
These
Because
stupid asses.
these stupid, because it's stupid anyway. Even if this place wasn't haunted, I'm like, this place sucks. There's spiders everywhere. I'm sure there's like roaches.
It stink. I know
It
that bitch
stinks.
stink.
I know
I
it's
know
like
that bitch stink.
stale, musty. It's just like, it's very dirty. It's just, they're sleeping on these mattresses on the floor, and they didn't bring these mattresses. These are mattresses that were already there. Let's think about that,
About that.
okay? And so then it's like there's no like real security. You know what I mean? Like they're just like in this bitch. Anybody could break in this bitch. You're not aware of the layout. Like I don't even know how they got restful sleep at night.
They didn't. Did you watch the movie? They didn't.
Right. I guess there was a lot more going on than like the threat of an intruder, right? Like so they had a lot of shit going on. But they just kind of people really drive home that all these people stay because Alex wants to stay. And so they're like, well, if Alex isn't leaving, then I'm not gonna leave. And I'm like, shit.
Alex would be asleep. We'd be in the van. Y'all,
Right.
what y'all think open right now? I'm hungry.
Right. I would rather sleep in the parking lot of an
Oh, a Waffle
IHOP.
House.
Right. we like different breakfast spots. But you know what I mean? Like it's just there are so many other options. Like I could still like maybe support my friend, maybe get my check for working on this crew. I could still maybe do all that, but I'm not fucking staying here. I don't give a fuck how Alex feels.
I would work at 9 to 5.
Right.
I'm here. We here at 9 o'clock in the morning. We going at 5.
Right.
End of
And that would
discussion.
just have to work for you.
You could eat a dick, like for real. like shit. What you gonna do? Build this shit yourself? You don't have no skills anyway.
You don't have any skills. All Alex's skills are just telling people what to do. Like he's like the creative mind behind the house.
Fuck a creative mind.
Right. And I'm like, well, all these props, like you just put some props. The atmosphere was already here. Like, Alex, you're not pulling your weight, but he was like shitting on everybody else. Okay. But yeah, they're all staying here, right? Then we also learn that it's like once they start sleeping there, things start to change. Because fucking obviously they do, right? So we get some footage and we're back and everybody's drinking and they're, drinking beers, laughing, and they're talking about past haunted houses they've done, bonding moments. This is also one of those moments where it's like the last time it was normal, and we'll get this footage later after they're all dead. And it'll be like, oh, remember when they were happy? That's this kind of footage. Additionally, they're using like glassware that I think was like in this hotel, and I'm like,
Drinking shit that was in the hotel, they was fucking tripping.
they were doing a lot. They were doing a lot of things that I would never do, and is that the point of this podcast? I would never be doing any of this shit. But I guess it's like a dedication to the craft, right? They just really wanted to put on this fucking haunted house.
Watch the movie then, bitch.
I know. So after their night of drinking, we cut to Tony, and he has the electronics guy. Tony has been able to set up cameras throughout the entire house. So the whole house is wired now. But for some reason, cameras will not work in the basement. They have these like thick walls. They just can't do it. And neither will walkie-talkies. So, they're like, damn, that's like a liability. We need something in there. We need eyes. So they decide that they are going to have an actor, because they typically have actors for these, and they're just going to find a big guy and they're going to put him in a clown costume and they're going to put him in the basement. That way, anything that goes wrong down there, they have kind of like this bouncer in the area. That doesn't work out.
Spoiler alert.
That doesn't fucking work out.
Shit.
It like backfires so comically, but we get a lot of shots of the guys and they're setting up props around the house, and we get this one shot of Paul. He is sitting at a piano and with a prop that he's naming Hector, right? And he starts playing this tune on an old piano. It's a very specific tune that he's playing, so remember it because it comes up. So after he is done, he goes to his bedroom to do like a little bit of a confessional. And we learn that it's been about 3 weeks at this point since they've arrived to the Abaddon Hotel. And he's laying in bed and he's shooting his little confessional. And the room is like totally dark except for the light that's coming from the camera that he has it laying in front of him. And so that's everything behind him is shrouded in darkness. So he is lying and he's facing the camera. His back is facing the open bedroom door. And I would never do something like this. Why wouldn't you close your door?
Right.
I would have it closed and locked. You're in an unfamiliar place. But as he's talking, we can see behind him into the hallway, and we see someone, it looks like a woman, enters the room very slowly behind him, just kind of stands there. And it's really too dark to tell who it is. And it kind of takes him a minute to realize she's standing there, and he thinks it's Sarah, and he's like, hey, like, what's up? And she doesn't say anything. She just slowly turns around and walks out of the room. And he's like, that's weird.
I would have been dressed.
I would have had my shoes on already before she was even done exiting the room. That's kind of crazy, right? Like,
or like why he didn't like. This is what I thought was crazy about that. I would have said, "Who that is?" and said nothing. I would have got the light on.
Right, he doesn't.
I would have got real aggressive, real fast.
It hadn't been Sarah. She would have been like, "Geez, I'm sorry."
What is it? Answer when I fucking talk to you.
It's not even just that he doesn't do that. It's not even like it, he continues laying down. Okay, he doesn't like. What if it is an intruder? You're not even on your feet, ready to strike. You know what I mean? Like, baby would be so disappointed.
Baby would be like, "It's called mind control, bitch."
Yeah, right. So baby's like, these are the kind of people we kill.
For real.
These are this kind of stupid ass people we kill. So he doesn't even get up after she's left the room and like
close
turn
the
on
door
the light and close the door. He doesn't do anything. You don't know that it was Sarah, right? It could have been anybody. He just fucking goes to bed. He turns out the light and he goes to bed. And I'm just like, and then the next day, he doesn't ask Sarah about it. He doesn't tell anybody about it.
Why you came in my room all crazy last night? You free walk,
Yeah.
dumb bitch.
And then she would have been like, no, I didn't do that. And then it could have been like, that was weird. Let's think more about this. Let's talk about this. No, they do nothing. So I was like, this is
Already, like
already, I can't relate. I cannot relate to these people at all.
they try to make them so relatable with their beer drinking and their driving and smiling.
Right.
I was just like,
Right. And they're laughing in their friendship.
ship,
No.
no, no, never heard of
I,
it.
I can't relate. So we cut to the next morning and Paul is filming and like Alex and Sarah are in bed because they're like dating and Sarah's like just in her underwear and Paul is like, this is a very creepy scene, right? Like Paul is just filming her from the doorway for a minute without them, like they haven't noticed that he's there yet. And I thought that was like super weird. And Alex isn't offended enough for me. And neither is Sarah. And I was like, if my man wasn't like, let's go outside.
And that 2 weeks of the biscuit.
Right, I would be really upset. She's like in her underwear and he's like filming her butt. And then once he's in the room, he's like filming her more. It's just, I thought that was so fucking weird.
Remember like, in the scene right before that, where he got freaked out, he was like, oh man, Sarah's the only girl here. Alex doesn't like to share. Maybe they'll get some new the actors. He's like, some of the actors will come and maybe like, they'll be good.
Right, because that's another thing.
He's like just randomly horny.
He's horny. And so I guess it's like, because he does say it's been 3 weeks, right? It's been 3 weeks. There are no girls here and they're not in the city. So it's not like he can just go find a girl because he just like cannot go without sex, I guess. So he's like horny and that makes it even creepier. It's your friend's girlfriend.
Fuck
But
Alex.
right, exactly. That's how Paul feels for sure. So Paul is letting Alex know that the 3 actors that they've hired have arrived. And Alex goes out to meet the actors, and Paul is like filming them from a balcony. And he's like creepily zooming in on one of the actresses. And she can't tell, but we can tell. And it's like super fucking weird. And I'm like, Paul, I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to make us like comfortable with the fact that Paul gets fucked around later, but he's being like a super freak. So we come back to like present day, right? So we get a clip of the photographer, the one who entered the house, and he's being interviewed for the documentary. And he says that one of the first responders actually spoke to him about the crime scene and said that the first body they found was one of the Hell House members. And he didn't tell him who it was, but he did tell him that the person's throat had been slashed and it looked like it was self-inflicted. And he also revealed that there was a guy named Joey Schiffler. He was one of the actors. And so they're kind of telling us this as Alex is going out to meet the actors. Joey is the big guy who is supposed to be their like clown bouncer guy in the basement. They hired him and he was in fact in the basement when the tragic event, when it first started. And he actually did make it out alive. But we get some on-screen text that authorities tried to talk to Joey, several times, but he refused to ever talk about what he saw that night. And 9 days after the event, he was found dead in his bedroom. He'd hung himself. That added another layer of mystery to the whole thing. So we cut to September 18th. So this is 19 days until Hell House opening night. Alex is having a conversation with one of the actresses. This is Melissa. So far we have Melissa and we have Joey. They're supposed to be playing a big role in the haunted house. So Paul is being a fucking creep again. He's talking to Melissa, and while they're sitting there, Melissa starts revealing some of the rumors about the hotel. And she's like, she was like, I'm surprised that you guys are staying here with all the like creepy rumors. And Paul is like totally unaware of these rumors. But it seems pretty clear to me from the way he was reacting. Alex knew about the history of this hotel, right? Like, aren't you getting those vibes?
Totally. It's always somebody who knows.
Right. When they were interviewing a journalist or a photographer, like one of the people for the documentary, they were saying, I'm pretty sure none of them had any idea of the history of this place, like prior to going in. I don't think that's true. I think that Alex was like very aware.
100%.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I was just reading stuff about it, I think they go into that more in the sequel. We'll never know.
I mean, this a one and done for me.
So, according to Melissa, the local legend says that the hotel had closed because some things, unknown things, started happening to the guests. They started disappearing. And the owner of the hotel hung himself inside the hotel. And she really can't offer any more insight into that because apparently, like, nobody really knows the story, but she says all that to say the hotel is fucking haunted. Okay. And so we cut back to present day interviewees for this documentary, and they reveal a little bit more about the history, the unsettling history. It started with a man named Andrew Tully. And the local lore says that Tully built the hotel in Abaddon specifically because in some versions of the Bible, Abaddon is the name of the demon who guards the gateway to hell. So he was a Satanist and he was a cult leader. And the journalist that's being interviewed says that he believes that Tully considered himself a modern day Dante, so like a Dante Alighieri. And I believe he's saying this in references to Dante's trip through hell,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So now when we take that into context with all the pentagrams on the wall and things, we know that Tully is a Satanist. We can just kind of assume that it was Tully's intention to build a portal to hell in the hotel, right? Specifically the basement. This, I think, is something that they get into a lot more in the sequels as well, because this is just about all the information that we get on Andrew Tully in this film. But yes, so that all of that is going to be important as we move forward. But yes, so this is like one of those things that I was like, I think they could have put in a little bit more, but because he knew it was going to be a trilogy, he left it really vague, open-ended. So Diane, the documentarian, she asked the photographer what happened to these guests, these unknown guests of Andrew Tully's. And he mentions that there was an 11-year-old girl and her mother, and they disappeared, and they were last seen checking into the hotel. And apparently Tully was questioned a lot by the police, but he was able to produce some records saying that they left. So he was cleared of the charges, but the rumors drove away business, and he ended up hanging himself in the dining room of his hotel. This hotel, the Hotel Abaddon, and we get to see the pictures of his suicide. And I was like, I wonder if the director, the writer, Stephen Cognetti, I was like, I wonder, do you think he took some of that lore from like H.H. Holmes? Do you know H.H. Holmes?
Yeah.
Oh, so like the whole hotel thing, people disappearing in the hotel because he was like actually killing them. I was like, I wonder if he took some of that because I was like, that sounds so familiar. Anyway, we cut back to the Hell House crew. They're setting up, and we get a shot of the three creepy clowns that they have set up in the basement. That's going to be the final room of that haunted house. And we learn that one of the dummy clowns, it has like this black lipstick and it has blood running from its eyes and its mouth. It's actually a pretty creepy
Ye
clown.
doll. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, that's a good one. And I actually saw people online saying that they wish that they used that clown more. They were like, that clown could have his own spin-off movie or something.
He kind of looks like art.
He does kind of look like Art the Clown. He's very much giving those vibes.
Yeah, it gets scary. It gets scary.
It does it gets scary, especially if you watch it in the dark. So this particular dummy, it's scary looking, but it's kind of like a one piece. The head does not move on this particular dummy. The other ones can move and they can face different directions, but all this clown dummy can do is stare straight forward. They were like, okay, well, all the clowns are just going to have to all stare in the same direction because they wanted to kind of have them all looking to like one side of the room, but they can't. And so they're like, that's fine. Um, Joey, the actor slash bouncer, is going to be in one of these clown costumes. And so he's going to be sitting on the floor in the basement with these three. So, cut to that night, and Paul is awoken by a strange noise. And he takes the camera because the camera has the light on it, but also because this is a found footage film. Let's be real. So he takes that and he goes to investigate. And in the hall, he runs into Tony, who says that he thinks he heard like a scream or something. Mac and Alex join and they're like, what was that? Like, we feel like we heard something. And they're all kind of standing there, but nobody goes to check it out.
Worthless.
Yeah, they're just all like, huh, okay, night. And they all go back to fucking bed. Couldn't be me.
I've been gone.
That's the thing. It couldn't have been me, even if they had gone to investigate it. That couldn't have been me anyway. What would have been me was I wouldn't be here.
I've been out the door.
Right. And I would be texting you later, like, damn, that was crazy. Did y'all ever figure out what those noises were?
And I'd be like, girl, I don't know. I left a little bit after you.
Right. I was putting on my shoes while you were driving away.
Yeah, give me no time. I had to get my phone.
Because I would have been gone. Do you hear me? Like, I don't know. It's just, they just keep staying through these obvious red flags.
Because it could be just a regular, like, squatter or something. Fucking, like...
That's the thing. It doesn't have to be that this place is fucking haunted. I do not believe they're locking the doors in this place.
And that's my biggest pet... That's my second biggest pet peeve with people.
When they don't lock the door?
When they don't lock the door.
I don't live that kind of life.
I want to fight.
Right. If you do not lock the door...
You can't even come visit.
No. I don't care if it's like, well, I'm where I'm from, or like my door locks by itself. Well, take your ass back to where you came from.
Take your magic door, lock it in.
We don't play that in my house.
In these parts, we turn around and lock that motherfucker, and we bolt the bitch.
Right, and check it again before I go to bed at night. I don't even think they're doing that. So just like anybody could be in here.
Come in there, right.
But they don't check it out. They're just continuing to ignore these red flags. So the next day we get more footage of the members setting up, and we get shots of all the props that they have set up, and it is looking pretty good. I was like, this actually would be a really cool setting for a haunted house.
So I guess if Alex is the idea man, he does have a good vision, but still fuck him.
Right. Like, I'll give you that, but that's all I'm giving you. Because Alex has a lot of shit with him.
Right.
So as Paul is walking around, checking everything out, we're getting like shots of all the props. Everything's looking pretty good. He's looking for Tony, and he just runs into that fucking clown dummy from the basement. It's standing up and it's positioned so it's looking down the stairs to the basement. And so he's like, oh shit, like that's creepy. And so he like pans the camera down to the basement. He's like, oh, what are you looking at? And when he pans back, the clown's head is turned looking at him. And so he's like, oh shit. And he's kind of scared. That's alarming, right? Because he just assumes he's like, oh, Tony, you're fucking with me, and then he just like walks away. But then he gets back to the front of the house and Mac and Tony are sitting on the sofa. It wasn't fucking Tony. And so then he starts to flip out. He freaks out, which is understandable. I would too. He runs back to where the clown was and now it's fucking gone. And so he runs down to the basement and it's back. It's back sitting there, not moving. That's scary.
That's too weird.
That's too weird. That is not something that you can ignore, right? That is a serious event. That is an event worth leaving. If I was Paul, I would leave here. This is not, nobody was in the suit. The suit was standing up, and it's not just like they have to take Paul's word for it, because they do that a lot in movies where it's like, Paul's like, I guess, the weak link in this friend group, right? I think he was like the last person that they met. He's kind of an asshole. He doesn't do as much as everybody else. So he's like the weak link, and they always dismiss those people in the movies. This is no exception. But he has it on fucking video. And so Paul is like...
tripping. He's stressed out. He is stressed the fuck out.
He's stressed. And so he shows the rest of the crew the footage, and Alec and Mac, they just blame Paul and Tony. And they say that they were playing a prank. And I'm like, but Mac... Tony was in the living room with you and Paul was filming. Who fucking turned the head? It was just...
I don't like, and they do that a lot in movies, and I guess I just can't relate. If I saw you and you was freaked out, I'm like, this motherfucker really freaked out. All right. Yo, he freaked out. He not playing.
You're
not playing, right?
Playing. So it's just it's super irritating because he's very scared, right? He's visibly shook. And he's like, oh, well, it's Paul. And so they had to add somebody else, right? Because they're like, well, the clown was there and then it wasn't there. This is all one continuous shot. So they have to be like, oh, well, somebody was helping him, right? So they're like, well, it has to be Tony. And Tony, I'm sure, is like, damn, how'd I get brought into this? And neither of them protests enough. Neither of them is like, no, I didn't fucking do this. How, like, let's like think about this logically.
How would I be able to do that? And it's just like nobody says that.
Tony was sitting talking to Mac. Paul is filming. It is one continuous shot. Who is moving the dummy? Who moved the clown? Think about it logically. I couldn't be Paul in this situation because I'd be fighting.
Because it would be to the point where we gotta fight now. Because now you in here, you say I'm crazy, you calling me a liar. So now we gotta fight all because you just won't say that shit weird. And even if it had a scene where it was like, all right, let's just leave for a little bit. Let's, go get some air. Or, you have a scene where it's like, okay, we went, try to get in the car wouldn't start. It's just like, I don't like when it's just like, y'all just don't have no fighting. You just like, yeah, okay, well, that seems weird, but I guess we could just go along with it. Ain't enough money in the world.
Right. They're just like, oh, Paul and Tony, you're playing pranks on us. And they just accept that when neither Paul nor Tony were involved in this. They just accept it and they let it go. And I'm like, this is not believable to me.
Right.
This is unreasonable.
Especially because y'all fucking watched it.
You watched it. It's a continuous shot. It's not like he ever even cut the footage. And this comes up a lot. It's almost too much. It's not even like they're like, okay, that was weird. They're not even acknowledging it. And they're not like, well, let's get rid of that dummy. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get rid of that one. And maybe that'll like solve the problem. This is fucking scary. This is fucking weird. But like, we're so close to opening. They don't even like have a heart to heart about it. They're just like, oh, y'all are fucking with us.
Because even at some point in like Child's Play, they throw Chucky away.
Because naturally, right?
We'll just throw him outside. Fuck, we'll just throw him away. We'll pick him in a trash can. Who cares?
Right. Because at a certain point, it's like, whether you believe it or not, you're like, this is crazy. I feel crazy doing this. At a certain point, you need to take some steps to rectify this situation.
To rid your house.
Right.
It's like, damn, in this movie, they just like, unless they like stabbing me, then it's just not real. Oh, it's just a prank. It's just a joke. I don't like that. I didn't like that at all.
It was making my blood boil.
I was like, y'all acting too fucking stupid. I'm ready for this to be... And that makes me immediately go, I'm ready for this to be over. Because y'all too stupid.
I know exactly how you feel. Yes, because it's like, it's to the point where it's like, it's so dumb that it takes you out of the film. Because you're like, I can't relate to this. This is the kind of thing where like, okay, if they were living in the Amityville Horror's house, there was a certain point where they were like, okay, we need to fucking move. And then they're like, well, we need money. Like, we need a plan, which is like understandable, right? Because you just can't like bounce out of a house that you paid for, especially in this economy.
Shit.
But they made the decision. They were like, okay, you're right. We need to get the fuck out of here. And then it's like things escalated really quickly from there. So they didn't have the time. You're not even acknowledging that this is an issue.
And it's September.
Right. Right. And I just don't find that believable. But let's continue. So we cut to the next day and they go to the park to film a commercial for the haunted house. And they're filming, and then Sarah's doing some weird shit, right? She's like off to the side, kind of looking at this statue, just kind of in a trance. And they're like, hello. And so that's another thing. As soon as you're staying in a place that you think might be haunted, and then somebody starts doing some shit like that, these are red flags. So we cut to that night, and Tony and Paul are testing out the strobe lights in a hallway while Paul films the scene. They have it all set up with the props. They have a very specific number of prop dummies. They have 3 prop dummies like around this hall. And so they're just trying to get a look at what it's all going to look like when it comes together. So they turn the lights off and they turn the strobe lights on. And I thought this was a really effective scene because it's not like regular strobe lights, right? Where it's just like, it's like in quick succession. Like they're pretty slow. It's like a staggered type strobe.
Right.
And so stuff like that is like scary to me. I don't know why. I just really like strobe stuff. So as the strobe lights are flashing, we get like a little like a one of these things doesn't belong type moment because Paul is like looking and he's like, hey, how many prop dummies are in this hallway? And Tony's like, 3. And he's like, bro, what the fuck? There's a 4th fucking prop dummy popping up every so often. Like it's like it's not there every time, but the strobes are going, it'll disappear, it'll be gone, it'll come back. It's pretty fucking scary. And so Paul tries to run out, but the door is stuck behind him.
Stuck.
Dante, I would have passed away. This is so scary.
I was like, shit.
I know.
What's about to happen?
I know. I was so scared because now his back is turned and it's strobing and it's there. Is it not there? I was like, this shit is really fucking scary. So he is able to get the door open and he runs, hops over the bar. He's crying hysterically. He throws up. His reaction is totally understandable. What is not understandable is the fact that, again, he has this on fucking film. He is shook. He is rightfully shook. And they have a meeting about this. Like, this is cut to the next day. They're having this, like, meeting. And Alex is being a fucking piece of shit asshole because he's just basically like,
That didn't happen.
That didn't happen. It's on film. It's on film. You know that Tony isn't in the room. Paul is alone. It's not you. It's not your precious Mac or your precious Sarah. So who the fuck is making this happen? Think about this logically. I don't like stuff like this. And he's like, we need to make money. Exactly. Like, Alex is a piece of shit, and that's, that just kind of is what it is. But y'all are pieces of shit too because you're just accepting this. Because y'all are all seeing this footage, and I guess they're like, well, since it's only happening to Paul, it's okay. But
Right.
these are obviously red flags. My blood is boiling. So we cut to the present day, and one of the journalists is being interviewed. He's kind of talking about how Alex started this company and how everybody is like just super loyal to him, and that's why they stayed. Mac had been his best friend since childhood. Sarah was his girlfriend, and Tony and Paul were like the very first people that started working for Alex. And so they've just all been friends for a long time. All that is really cute.
So?
Yeah, but that just like wouldn't matter to me. Like, what is more important? Y'all are in a very dangerous situation right now. So we cut back to Hell House, back to the footage. This is nighttime, okay? Paul is again woken up by a noise, and he goes in the hallway to find that fucking clown dummy standing at the bottom of the stairs looking at them. Mac comes and he's like, what the fuck? How did it get there? So he's gonna approach it, and he touches it, and he says, it's just a fucking mannequin, dipshit. As if that would fucking explain how the shit got here. Mac is almost just as bad as Alex.
He is. No, he is just.
Yeah, I don't like him either. So then he's all huffy and annoyed, and he's like, I guess I'll move it back. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you fucking will, because you're just ignoring the fact that it's here anyway. Like, I didn't put the shit here. So as they're walking to bring the dummy back, they spot Sarah, who's like just standing in the dining room, and she's like facing a wall a la Blair Witch Project style, and she's mumbling to herself.
And nobody finds that weird.
Nobody finds it weird. What she's saying, it sounds like she's speaking backwards, and that's because it is. For this scene, they did they recorded her talking, and then they just played the sound backwards. So that's why it sounds like that's exactly what's happening here. She's speaking backwards, right? That's fucking alarming. So they leave the dummy standing there because they're like, all right, let's go get this bitch and figure out what's going on. I guess they assume she's like sleepwalking. So they're trying to wake her up. She's in like this trance. When she finally does come out of it, she's very scared and she's crying. She doesn't know what the fuck is going on. And they're like, this is crazy. Let's get her to bed. But when they turn around, the fucking clown dummy, it's gone. Mac is witnessing all of this, right? Mac, Sarah, they're witnessing all of this. Paul is standing right next to you. He's not doing it. So now they're fumbling around in the dark and they're heading to the basement to find this fucking dummy. This is stupid. This is not something that I would do. As they're walking, they enter the dilapidated dining room, which it's all set up with the props that they've laid out for the haunted house. And then they gather together to check in with each other. Then they hear a random grandfather clock just start like chiming in the back. And so when they run back to the dining room to see what's going on, it's all set up. The table is like completely set up and made. There's like
Candles
candles
lit.
burning and stuff. Right. That's alarming.
I
I
would
would have been gone. It's set up the exact same way that it was in the picture when the hotel owner like hung himself.
Exactly.
This is alarming because this is like so beyond a prank at this point. It's not just this moving dummy.
And who would be doing
Who would be
it?
doing it? And then how would it happen this quickly? How would they do it without making any sound? How would they light these candles? There weren't any candles to be lit. Like, it's exhausting. So Sarah's screaming because this shit is scary. The guys are like freaking out and they try to run back down the hall to head back upstairs. And the fucking clown dummy is there in their path, blocking their path. And they're like, oh shit, that's crazy. They run past it, head upstairs, and that's just like, I guess they just go to bed that night. They don't leave. We cut to the next morning, and Paul is filming Alex, who's comforting an obviously distraught Sarah. And that was like kind of all that happened that day. We cut to that night, and Paul is doing one of his nighttime confessions from his bedroom because they are still there.
If you thought by this point they're somewhere else,
You thought wrong. They're not. They're not even like opting to sleep in the van at night to be safe. You know what I mean? But none of them are. It's not even like Paul's like, you know what? Fuck this. Because it just seems like shit keeps happening to me. He doesn't opt to sleep in the van. Sarah doesn't opt to sleep in the van. They just, business as usual. Paul's doing his little confessional. Again, he has his back facing this open doorway. And he's telling us that there are only 3 days left until the opening of Hell House. And he says that everyone is a little stressed. A little stressed. And I was like, no.
just fucking stupid.
It's very stupid. But he says that Alex is more confident than ever. And Sarah's just like a mess.
Fuck Alex.
But then he just goes to bed. And it's just like, he goes to bed. He doesn't close the door. He doesn't lock it. All of this is going on. If you like had to sleep there, I would at least sleep like facing the doorway so that I could see what was going on. I would probably sleep with my shoes on. If there was like if we were in Antarctica and there was nowhere else to go, I would at least be prepared. I think he's just in like boxers or something.
Yeah, he's in boxers.
He goes to bed. When he wakes up in the middle of the night, he turns the camera on in it to have the light because there's a light on the camera, right? And we as the audience see that there is a woman, a dead woman, sitting on the floor in his room. And so he doesn't notice. He's like rubbing his eyes, waking up and stuff. And when he does notice, he's like, oh, fuck, and he decides to hide under the covers and essentially hope that she goes away. Well, she doesn't. She doesn't go away. As soon as he lifts the covers up, she's like right fucking there. We get this jump scare, which is like pretty scary. He drops the camera and he's like being attacked, right?
Right.
So he's screaming. It's loud as fuck. He is like screaming at the top of his lungs, but nobody hears any of this. Nobody checks on Paul. Nobody is concerned.
No one cares.
No. I was like, damn, y'all hate Paul. Why did you even invite him?
I just don't like that kind of shit. That kind of shit is too stupid to me.
It is. And it's not realistic. And I know I complain a lot because we talk about Sebastian and how he can't just accept certain things in scary movies. Like, it's like you have to suspend a certain level of disbelief, right? Stuff like this, to me, though, I feel like a movie could be better, could be a lot more effective if you gave people at least some form of a realistic reaction to something. To just have no level of realism, to just for them to keep staying in this house where there's like multiple recorded paranormal events, and not just to be like, it's like they don't even have like a throwaway comment where it's like, I know, guys, but what can we do? Like, I already paid for the place, and we don't have the money, and we don't have the money to stay anywhere. Like, they don't even have that. They're just like, I don't believe you.
Well, I guess it's that part where are you the part where they're explaining like why they have to stay and like the way Alex like
Fuck
Alex.
no. So we're about to get to that,
Oh,
because
okay.
that comes. So now Paul is gone, right? We cut to the next day, and Paul is totally gone. Nobody knows where he is. Tony is the absolute only person that even is like a semblance worried about Paul. Mac doesn't give a fuck. And Tony is like, but think about it logically. All of his shit is
Sit is
still
here
here.
here.
Think about it. How could you not be worried? And they're like, oh, well, remember that one time 4 fucking years ago he left for 2 days? And they're like, even Tony's like, that was 4 years ago. Why are you going to hold that against him now? Especially with all this stuff that's been happening in the house. All this stuff is still there. And then Tony's like, well, has anybody even tried to call him? And they're like, no. Alex is like, I don't even have his phone number.
I never understood how people like was a friend to y'all.
Right, like,
I just don't have people just around who if I fuck with you, I fuck with you. If I don't, I don't. So
right. So why are you asking Paul to be here if you just really, like, it seems like you just really think Paul is a piece of shit, right?
and you don't fuck with them.
So why is he here? If you just like really don't fuck with him at all, why the fuck is he here? Because they say all the time Paul is filming, because apparently, they always have to have this like throwaway line in a found footage movie that will explain like why the fuck they're filming everything. But Paul says, like, Alex has given him the directions, like, I want everything filmed so they can, like, I guess watch the setup, improve things for like next year. Like, that's the reason that they give in the movie, right? You've asked Paul to film everything, and then at every opportunity that you get, you're just like, Paul's useless. Paul doesn't do anything. And it's like, well, Paul's not here. I think there's like a part because when they finally do like see Paul again, he's like fucked up and he's not doing anything. And they're like, well, how's that any different than what he normally does? And I'm like, why is he here?
Y'all couldn't find somebody else.
Right. You clearly don't like this man, right? So nobody even tries to call him, and Alex like, I don't even have his fucking phone number. And I'm like, that's crazy. So Tony's like, fine, let's call him. We can use my cell phone. When they do call him, it picks up and they're like, hello, Paul. And then they hear just like this crazy otherworldly screaming.
Scream.
Yeah, it's like the screeching coming from the other end. It's deafening. They all like have to cover their ears, and they're like shook. They're like, what the hell was that? And Alex is like, I don't know. And they just like let that go. It's the last they talk about it. They're just not even worried about Paul anymore. Which is like, that's alarming.
It's frustrating as a viewer to watch it because it's just like y'all really that's not weird to you, and
That
nobody.
is
It's just like and everybody's just like, well, man, one time he did. Okay, well, what did he do that one time? Tell me so
right.
I motherfucking know, because I want to know.
I want to know what is enough for you to totally write him off in this moment. You invited him, he's here, you asked him to be here, and yet you're completely writing him off. Like, please let me know what this fucking dude has done that is so egregious, because I'm just kind of sitting here wondering, like, he's supposed to be your friend. I don't get it. So, whatever. Okay. We cut to that night, and Tony is taking over the camera duties. So he's awoken by the sound of the piano playing downstairs. So this is like callback to the earlier in the movie when Paul was setting up the Hector dummy at the piano, and he played this very specific song on the piano. That's what they're hearing now from the piano. So it's the middle of the night and nobody else should be here. So they get up and they're going to investigate. Mac is already at the top of the stairs because he's also trying to figure out like what the fuck is going on right now, because that's like scary.
This shit's weird.
It's weird. So Tony and Mac, they go down to investigate because they're like, every single thing that happens in this movie, they're like, oh, it's Paul. It's Paul. It's Paul. They're like, oh, well, Paul is like fucking with us again. When was he fucking with you before? Paul has been terrified for the past 3 weeks.
Stressed.
They get to the room, and the only thing that's at the piano is that Hector dummy that they'd set up like 3 weeks earlier. There is no fucking Paul. And so they look around the whole room. Like they're looking like behind the sofa, like lifting chairs and stuff. Nobody else is in the room. And then while they're in the room, there's some notes that are played on the piano. There's literally no fucking body else in the room. This shit is weird. And for some reason, they're just like, Paul?
Paul? How did you do that?
How could he do that? Let's put our thinking caps on, right?
Right the hell now.
How could he have done that? So then they hear some noises and they assume that it's Paul. So they're like running through the house, like presumably chasing Paul down. So it's super dark, and all we have is the light from Mac's flashlight and then the light on the camera. So they're like running around. They're in the basement. They don't turn on the light, and I hate shit like this. But they're checking every nook and cranny, and we see, you know, the 3 clown dummies that are set up. There's nothing else in here. They're all facing forward because that's the only way that they can face, right? So Mac is going and he's looking at, he finds like an old walk-in freezer type thing. And they're like looking at that. But when Tony looks back at the 3 clowns, they are now all facing them. Okay. So this should be impossible. They're all turned with their heads to the left, looking at Tony. And Tony is understandably very freaked
out
the fuck out. So he's like, oh fuck, and he's like, get in this like walk-in refrigerator. And he's trying to explain to Mac, like he's like damn near in tears. And so he's like, they're all their heads turned. For 2 of them, that should be improbable, right? Because their heads should move on their own. But for that one, it's fucking impossible. And so Mac just like does not believe him. He asked him, do you believe in ghosts? And Tony is like, yes, I do. And Mac's like, well, I don't. So I just don't believe that any of this is happening. And so it's like, of course, when they go out and Mac looks down at the clowns, they're all facing forward again. And Tony is pissed. And I know that must be so fucking frustrating because now Mac is just like, told you so, kind of, you know? And so Mac is like, it's just Paul fucking with us. And I'm like, I'm getting a headache at this point because I'm like,
it feels like it's dragging. Does it feel like at that point it's starting to drag? Like it's too long. It's too long of repetitiveness. It's too long of it's Paul fucking us. Paul fucking us. You know, it's like one of those. You know, it's a found footage movie, so nothing is going. It's building up to a big climax. So it's not like small things happening. People just like Paul's gone. We know Paul, and it's just like, oh well, they're just not likable. And like in these kind of movies, you know, somebody got to be likable, and nobody's like, what the fuck's Sarah at?
It's too much for them to just keep with the narrative that it must be Paul and to not be like, well, Sarah's doing some weird shit. Like, you know, Alex is being kind of weird. Like, at no point to bring any realism. I would have appreciated it so many times if Tony had just been like, Mac, that's impossible. Nobody else is in this room with us. You know what I mean? Like, we don't get that. And therefore, it's like, I just can't. It's frustrating. It's like at this point, you're right. It's dragging because there's only so long that you can keep blaming Paul when it's obviously not fucking Paul. They do this for the rest of the movie. So, lo and behold, Paul is in fact in the basement. He wasn't before, but he is now, and he's just kind of fucking sitting there. And then Mac, this just confirms all of his suspicions. Like, oh, look, he's here. It's been him the whole time. But Paul is like kind of fucked up. Hey, Paul, why are you so fucked up?
Hey, Paul, why you so fucked up?
Yeah, so Paul is sitting there and they're like, hello, hello. And he's like kind of in a trance, I guess. They're like, let's just get him upstairs. And so they take him upstairs and they put him to bed. And this is like one of the last times that you see Paul in the movie, because when we say Paul is fucked up, we mean that. Paul's fucked up.
He's like quiet and weird. You really don't get a close up to his face. You just, I guess it's unsettling.
It's
That's the word.
unsettling. That's a really good word for it, because it's like he's there. His body is there, but he's really not there. Something's off about him. He's just like a shell. And so they're just like, they just kind of put him to bed. When Tony gathers Alex and Mac and tries to tell them that they need to call off the haunted house because it is not safe, Alex is like, fuck that. The opening night is tomorrow. Like, Alex is like, come hell or high water. And Alex is such a fucking douchebag in this scene. Like, it just, this is where I kind of like wrote Alex off altogether. I wrote him off a long time ago, but this is where I was really like, this guy's a piece of shit. So Alex is like, Paul is back, isn't he? That's good news. And Tony's like, no. How is that fucking good news? Did you see this dude? Like, he's not back. Like, yeah, his body's back, but Paul is obviously not the same. And for you to even say that to me is insulting. So he's like, fuck you, Alex. Fuck you, Mac. He's like, I don't know where you are, Sarah, but fuck you too. He's just like,
Especially if, where the fuck is Sarah?
Sarah's just like, I guess, because remember, Paul was like, Sarah's a mess. Because Sarah was with them that night with Paul and Mac. And remember, they're like running through and the dining room changed and stuff, and all that stuff is going on. That was really fucking scary, and it was really fucking real. And I think Sarah is the only other person that's like, it's real. You know what I mean? And so she's probably just like locked in her bedroom, or she's somewhere haunting something. I don't know.
Fucking saying seance shit.
Right. So Mac and Alex are assholes, and so Tony just quits. And I was like, thank you. That was the smartest thing Tony could have done. He's like, I fucking quit. And Alex is like, oh, you quit, eh? Well, get out of here. You know?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, well, good, get out of here. And I was like, yeah, fuck you. I mean, I would have like spit on Alex on my way out, because you're such a piece of shit. But, you know, Mac is trying to be like, no, Alex, don't, you know. And so before Tony leaves, Mac is, you know, he catches him and he tells him that he can't leave because he doesn't have all the facts. This is a part, this is a part of the movie that I did not like this. And I think that you were like getting to this earlier. They don't, he says that, and then they cut the camera. And Mac presumably tells Tony something, but we as the audience are not privy to this information. Like, whatever this secret is that is revealed, we do not know this information. When the camera comes back on, Tony's like sitting in a field and he's lamenting the fact that he's just like, well, I guess I cannot leave.
She.
Right. And we as the audience don't know why. He and Mac are having this like heart to heart about how Mac has known whatever this information is for like the entire time, and he's kept it between him and Alex. Like, not even Sarah knows, and that's Alex's girlfriend. And Max says this line where he's like, you know what's really scary is like there's a lot that Alex isn't even telling me. And so it kind of all boils down to now Tony feels like he has absolutely no choice but to stay.
What could he possibly have said?
What could he possibly have said, right? And so this is one of those moments where I was kind of referring to in the beginning when we were talking about the fact that the director, writer, he was like, this was always going to be a trilogy. This is one of those things that makes this movie like an incomplete movie, in my opinion, because this is a thing that apparently you don't learn.
It's the third one?
until this. I think you learn a little bit in the second one and more in the third one, and that's
Fuck
fucked
that.
up.
That's that bullshit.
There's not much of the movie left, so let's table this, and I'm gonna circle back to it to like what I think Mac would have told Tony. In my opinion, it doesn't explain why Tony stays, because I was like, anything that Alex did doesn't have shit to do with me.
Fuck him.
Right.
I don't have no loyalty.
Right.
None to this motherfucker. It's a job anyway.
Especially because Alex seems like he doesn't even fucking like you. Like, if we're being really real, when you were like, I quit, he was basically like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. That's offensive in itself. Like, you can't even take me seriously, like, respect me enough as a friend to, like, even try to understand my feelings. Because Alex admittedly, Tony, because it's not Paul, it's not the fuck up at this point, right? Tony is like, explain to me, like he pins him down, explain to me how, because it's on camera, right? The clowns were in fact looking at them. He's like, explain to me how that clown's head moved, because remember, this dummy doesn't move. And he's, Alex is like trying to bullshit his way around it. And Tony's like, no, explain it. And Alex is like, okay, well, I don't have an explanation for that. Right. You fucking don't. This is an issue. Like, am I taking crazy pills? So it's like, the fact that Tony is then like, I quit, to not even respect him as a friend enough. It's like, now, okay, you admittedly don't have an explanation for how this dummy moved. This is very strange. Even if it was Paul fucking with you guys, it's not possible. But you still are not taking this time to be like, I get it, but please, like, we really need this money. The opening night is tomorrow. If we could just get through the opening night, then we could stay at a hotel or like something like that. He doesn't do any of that.
I don't like him.
I don't like him. He makes it really difficult to like get through the movie. So we're cutting back to present day, and we're with Diane, who's interviewing Sarah still, and she's asking her if there were any technical problems or malfunctions that could have caused any of these injuries, deaths. Sarah's like, no. And so she asks Sarah, was Alex of sound mind to run this show? Or, like if it was something on management's end that could have caused this tragedy. Like, she's really trying to like tiptoe around this question. And Sarah's like, what do you mean? Bitch, you know what we mean. Like,
fuck you, Sarah.
Right, fuck you. Because Sarah's like, oh no, he seemed fine, like always. She was like, he was just hyping up the actors and stuff. And so Diane asked her, like, why didn't you leave? And she basically just says, like, well, Alex wasn't leaving, so neither would I. So she's like, that's my man, I'm gonna stick beside him. And I'm like, girl.
Bird ass.
Right, more power to you, because that was a no for me.
No, hell to the no.
Right. So we cut to another witness that's being interviewed, and Diane is asking her if she noticed anything weird in the haunted house. And she mentions that a guy in a clown costume pushed his way past them, like running out of the house when everybody was heading straight into the basement.
That will never not be funny.
That shit was very funny to me, and it's not supposed to be funny. But so this is something that we saw in the tour goer footage that was posted on YouTube from the beginning of the movie. We did see that fucking clown like booking it out of there. She said that once they got close to the bottom of the stairs in the basement, they were like kind of stuck there. They couldn't push forward because everybody that was already down there was trying to push their way out. So everything is kind of like, we're kind of getting to that point to like kind of see what actually happens, because now we are cutting back and it is actually opening night of Hell House, and Alex is giving the actors a pep talk, and he seems kind of off, right? Like, he's talking and it's like he can't really complete a thought. Right. And so Mac has to step in and be like, yeah, okay, we're going to be great. You guys, it's just like, I don't know. This is like, he doesn't seem, like Diane said, like of sound mind. You know what I mean? But This irritated me. Tony actually apologizes to Alex.
I hate bitch shit like that. I hate stuff like that.
I don't like that. For fucking what? What are you apologizing to this dude for? This pissed me off so bad. I was like, Tony, you deserve whatever happens to you from this point on.
And I hope it happens to you too.
Me too. I'm praying for it. So Tony goes upstairs to check on Paul, and Paul is just like fucking non-responsive. Paul is in the bed. He doesn't move. He doesn't
Looking like a rag doll.
Yeah,
he looks like a real person.
Yeah, I think they might have used like a dummy for the scene. The way he's laying there with his he's so flat with his head under the covers is crazy.
Like he snuck out and broke curfew.
I know, right? And he just has some pillows stuffed under the sheet to make him pretend like he's there. He doesn't acknowledge Tony at all. And so Tony's like, okay, you know. So then Tony goes outside and we get a shot of the crowd that's waiting to enter the haunted house. And the line is like pretty substantial. It's a lot of people waiting to get in this bitch. So Mac is checking in with the actors in the basement. And Melissa, one of the actresses, so the plan is for her to be chained to the ceiling by her wrists. And remember, we have Joey, who is in his clown costume, and he is taking his seat on the floor. He has a spare key to Melissa's lock just in case anything goes wrong. And she is going to be there kind of like with her shirt cut open in like a bra and panties. So if anybody gets too grabby or stuff, like Joey's supposed to be there to like keep everybody in check if things start going wrong. That is like that's his whole purpose, because remember, they don't have any cameras or eyes down there. So Melissa is kind of getting the feeling that things are like off, right? Because Alex is being very weird in that quasi pep talk. And Mac is like, you know, she asks him, like, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. And she's like, you tell me, would you? And he's like, yeah.
And she's
sure.
like, where the fuck Paul been?
She's like, where's Paul? And they're like, oh, he's like under the weather. Paul is like comatose. It's like Paul's not going to be there this evening. So while they're getting ready to roll, and Alex is checking in with everybody, and we learn that Mac's walkie-talkie is just not working at all. And so that'll become important later. But the time has come. We've been working towards this point. The doors of the haunted house are officially open. And so now for this like portion of the movie where people are going in, we are continuously bouncing back and forth between like the recorded tour goer footage, like cameras in the house, and then Mac is wearing like this head mounted camera. So people are entering, they're walking through, and we see on Mac's head mounted cam, he's like in a little like hidden area, just kind of watching as things are happening, making sure that everything goes like according to plan. And Sarah runs into this little room where he's spectating everything. And she tells Mac, she's like, I just saw Paul in the haunted house. And she's freaked out by this. And that's really understandable because Paul is on some other shit now, right? Like
Paul like, on my some other shit now.
So Mac is like, it's okay. You know, he's been near comatose at this point, but she's like, I think he's like in the basement. So while they're talking in this little like cubby hole, they see this shit is like funny every single time. They see the clown, Joey. Joey is fucking
Joey is 6'3", 306 pounds, and he is moving like a feather.
Right.
He is
Joey
floating.
is a gazelle flying out of this bitch. Joey is gone. He's not even like, sorry. Joey did what needed to be done and got the fuck out of there. At the first sign of trouble, it's like, Joey, your only job was to protect this girl.
You the fucking bouncer. You gone.
He was gone. I like the way, but then it's like we're seeing it from this perspective. They're gonna show it from another perspective, and that shit is even more hilarious. He didn't even try. So they're like, what the fuck? Was that like Joey that just ran by? So now they have absolutely no eyes in the basement, right? The cameras have never worked down there, and they start to hear like some screaming. And this is not just regular haunted house screaming. This is like blood curdling screams. And they're like, fuck, something's wrong. And so Mac is like desperately trying to call to Alex over the walkie-talkie to figure out what's going on. But remember, Mac's walkie-talkie is like not working. And so we are cutting to like the tour goer footage, and we're inside the basement now. And this is showing like the exact moment where things started to go left. So we see Melissa, and she is still chained up, and she is crying, and she is begging. She's like, please, Joey, you had the spare key. Please. It's not funny. She's like, please unhook me. Like, let's get out of here. She's screaming like this is not a part of the show. She is like terrified. Okay. She's hysterical at this point. So in the back of the basement, we can see there's like this hooded figure standing there. And we, as the movie watchers, know this is not a part of the show. This person should not be there. But all the tour goers are like mad confused because they're like, I don't really know what to do. Like, is this like, or should we be scared? Like, I don't know. And so while Melissa's screaming, begging, please, Joey, you're the only person in here with the key. Joey's like, bye. Joey doesn't even apologize to her. He doesn't even try. He doesn't give the key to somebody else. He doesn't throw it at her feet. Joey he literally just stands up and runs out.
There is no loyalty in this fucking. But you know what?
Absolutely not.
But you know what? Joey, like, I just met this bitch. I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Because Joey's like, damn, this shit's getting crazy. Because it is. That shit is crazy. This hooded figure has appeared. He's not supposed to be here. I don't know what I would have done. I would have ran. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I would have left. But I think I might have given the key to somebody. I maybe would have dropped it on the floor so that I would at least feel like now I know somebody else in this entire house has a key to these handcuffs.
Because she was like hanging. He would have had to like really try to give a fuck. Like, it wasn't like.
No, he wouldn't have been able to do it quickly. And then he would have had his back
Turn.
Yes, he would have had his back to this creature that just appeared, this hooded figure. I get it. And they were like some serious cuffs too. He would have had to like reach, it's dark. He would have had to find it. Joey was like, he probably thought about all that in the 10 seconds that he sat there. He was like, I don't have time. I just gotta get the fuck out of here.
Why you let them tie you up at that anyway?
I know. He's like, that's not my fault.
I would have never let them tie me up, just in general. I always been like, I'll just hang my hands here.
You shouldn't. It shouldn't be that like I cannot escape.
Escape
if I need to. You know what I mean? Because
that's because y'all let Alex do too much.
You let Alex do too much, and he came up with this idea, and it's like she's also very vulnerable, right? Because she's basically just in like a bra and underwear. And with her hands like cuffed above her head, it's insane. So she is stuck because at this point, like it's not even like if anybody else wanted to help her, they couldn't, right? Because Joey took the key. He not only left her, but he took the fucking key. So Melissa's fucked, okay? So she knows it too, right? She's hysterical. So the tour goers are like mad confused and they're asking her like, are you okay? And she's like, no, bitch, did you not hear what I said?
This is not supposed to be happening. Fuck y'all.
Right. She's like, this is not a part of the show. Like, go get help. And so then because she's freaking out, everybody starts to freak out. And so there was originally like one hooded figure in the back of the room, but now there's like two. Right. So now that's fucking scary. So the exit is blocked because this is supposed to be the exit that everybody takes to like actually get out of the basement. It's like locked. So there's only one way in, one way out at this point. So everybody's trying to like push back the way that they came, and, you know, unsuspecting guests are like trying to push in. It's creating this like bottleneck. And I was like, this shit is very crazy and this is really scary, but like how creepy would this have been if it actually was a part of the show? That would have been that would have been a good fucking show. But of course it's not. So the tour goer is like filming and everything, and it's getting like pretty staticky at certain points. It's very chaotic. But as people are fighting to get out, we see the two hooded figures and they're approaching Melissa. So they're like at her now. So we're like, damn, I guess Melissa's dead, right?
Oh yeah, she's over.
Right. So we get more shots and people like stampeding now. And then when the person recording looks back, you get this really like close up shot of this like demon ghost hooded figure like in a black robe, and they're like attacking the crowd at this point. And so they drop the camera, the tour goer drops the camera, and we get a really quick shot of Melissa. And I'd pause it to see this. She has been like unhooked from where she was, but she's now suspended in the air, like in the back of the room, not where she's chained. So they're like doing something with her body, and that's like really scary. And so people are making their way out of the basement. They're running through the hotel, and Mac is like directing people to the exit at this point. And a lot of people are getting out. Like a lot of people do actually escape, but then all of a sudden the exit door slams closed and he is locked in and he's freaking out. And then some of the tour goers are locked in too. Did you ever notice this? Like there are still tour goers, and Mac is like, well, come on, there's like another way out. But at this point, Mac is really fending for himself. Have you noticed that? Like he leaves these fucking tour goers.
At a certain point, it was just like, all right, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I gotta move quick.
Right. And he's like, these people are confused. They don't know where they're going. Like, I don't have time to like show them.
I
He's
know
like,
exactly where to go.
right.
The fuck away.
He's like, there's another exit. And he just starts like booking it out of there. He like passes tour goers on his way.
And you can hear the footsteps, like, because it's like their found footage shit. You can hear the footsteps, and it's just like.
He's like, boom, 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 boom. He is booking it. So I know his heart had to be racing. So wait, I love this too. So Mac runs into Tony, and Mac is just like, we gotta get out of here. And Tony zooms. Tony's fucking gone. Tony doesn't ask what's going on. He doesn't stop because Tony's like, I already knew this shit was about to go left. Tony is running. If you thought Mac was running fast, Tony basically leaves Mac, right? Like he is racing through the house. And I think they're going to the exit that's in the basement because they're like, well, we already know that there's another exit out of here, but they don't know how fucked up things are in the basement. So they're running through the dining room. Mac is not stopping. He's not registering anything because the dining room is set up again, right? And that's really scary. It's set up like that night where there's like all the candles lit. There's like a ghost girl in there. And Mac kind of pauses and he's like, oh, fuck. Like, that's crazy. Tony's gone. Tony's fucking through the door, out of sight. So we see like the dead girl. They don't have time to register the information. They just like kind of keep running. Tony is in the lead, and Tony makes it to the basement because remember, Tony is doing like the 100-meter dash. He is in the basement, and you hear Melissa screaming and stuff. And by the time Mac gets there, the basement door slams in Mac's face, and so Mac is now like trapped at this point, right? Because there's no other way out. So now Mac has to run back upstairs, and along the way, this time he finds Sarah, and he's like, "We just got to get to the attic." I don't know why. I guess maybe I don't know what their plan was here. I guess maybe they were just like, "I don't know where else to go get to the attic."
Jump out the window.
Right. I mean, they had to do something, right? Because things are getting really fucked up. So there's no other way out. They make it to the attic, and immediately they see Alex, who is being hung from the rafters. So he's still alive, but he's like struggling and kicking. And so Sarah's screaming, and Mac runs to him, and he's trying to save him. But as he's trying to like pick him up, he hears noise behind him. He turns around, and the room is filled with these hooded figures that we're seeing. And they attack Mac, and he presumably dies, and he drops the camera on the floor. And once he drops it, we see Alex's body swinging from the rafters. Now he's dead. You hear Sarah screaming in the background. And so that was like really crazy, right? That was like a really crazy scene with Sarah. So then we cut back to Diane's interview with Sarah, and now she's explained like how all of that went down. And so Diane's like, well, what happened next, And Sarah's like, well, after that, I just kind of went downstairs from the attic and I casually walked to the front door. The police were arriving there and they just like rushed me out. and they didn't really ask me any questions, and I'm just like happy to be alive. And Diane is like,
Now, I hear some bullshit.
right, because Diane, like us, is like, that's very suspicious, right? Because the room is filled with these hooded figures. There's no way out. Like the exits are closed, right? People are literally dying. And Sarah's like, yeah, I just casually walked
Left.
down the stairs. They just like let me do that.
They made me itch. When they all appeared, I didn't like that.
I'm sure Mac felt the exact same way.
I didn't feel bad for Mac because there ain't nothing they would have been able to say for me to be there. I wouldn't have been there.
I wouldn't have been there. And I was like, Tony should have just left when he had the fucking chance. Like, I don't know if any of this was worth it, right? Whatever he could have told you.
Because it's a haunted house, bitch. Like,
it's a fucking haunted house. Get over yourself.
like y'all sound fucking stupid.
And so, Diane asks her straight up, like, nothing happened to you while you were running from the attic all the way to the front door, you just left. And Sarah was like, basically, like, that's what I said, isn't it, bitch? And Diane's like, okay, if you say so. So then Sarah's like, you know what? I'm tired because I've been answering a lot of questions today. So she's like, they're filming in a hotel conference room. And so Diane's like, why don't you let us get you a room? And Sarah's like, no, I already have a room. Actually, I'm staying in room 2C. So she's like, if you just give me a couple of hours to rest, you can come find me there and we can continue this conversation. And so on her way out, they're not filming anymore, but I guess it's like presumably they're still mic'd. And so you can hear Sarah and she's telling Diane, like, you should really try to get into the hotel and like see what's inside. And Diane's like, well, I can't because like all boarded up. There's no way that I'm going to get a permit. And Sarah was like, is that the only thing that's stopping you? Like, basically, like, well, if you're too chicken.
I didn't like this.
I didn't like this either.
It's too heavy-handed.
It's too heavy-handed.
And it's too silly. It's too silly. And then she becomes a stupid. She took a stupid pill. This took a stupid pill at this point, right?
Right, because up until this point, like, you were right to be skeptical of some of the things that Sarah was saying. She's just been like a healthy amount of skeptical up until this point. Sarah, all she said to you was like, well, is that the only thing that's stopping you? Like, are you too scared? And so then she
threw all sense out the window.
Right. You just listen to all this stuff that happened. There are people that died in there. Mitchell is reviewing the footage. You haven't even finished reviewing the footage yet to see for yourself exactly what went on in here. She just like abandons all reason and she convinces it's like her and her cameraman who did not go to the same cameraman school that Joel went to because he went along with this shit.
I was like, this was stupid. This felt too silly for me. And it once again, like I had got into the movie a little bit with the climax. I was like, it's almost over. I had to check the time. I was like, how much more time they got? And it was like 15. It had like maybe like 12, 10 more minutes. And I was like, oh, I know what's about to happen.
Right. So at this point, Diane takes the bait and she convinces her team that this is a good idea. And so she's like, Mitchell, you keep reviewing the footage. Me and Fodder cameraman, we're going to go into the Abaddon. And so at the front desk, she stops and she tells the front desk clerk, she's like, hey, if the woman in 2C comes looking for us, tell her we'll be back soon. And the front desk clerk is like, our room numbers don't have letters in them. So like, are you sure that's the room number? And she's like, oh, well, can you tell me what room Sarah Havel is staying in? And the clerk's like, there is no Sarah Havel staying at this hotel.
Okay, so
these are red flags.
It's just like you took a stupid pill.
Right. And so the way that they explain this to themselves, they're like, oh, well, she must just like be staying under another name. So that's okay. Let's be on our way. Nobody stops to think at any point to like really think about what this girl is saying. I don't know. So we get some on-screen text that says, it just says like what Mitchell sees while reviewing this footage after Diane leaves is unexplainable. And so now we as the audience are seeing this footage that Mitchell saw. So this picks up after Mac dies.
Right.
This is like basically what Sarah has left out of the narrative. Mac has been killed by these hooded figures. Alex is hanging from the rafters. And Sarah picks up the camera at this point. And so she is walking back through the house and she's trying to find an exit. And she's clearly scared because I thought this was like so funny. There's a hooded figure like as she's walking and she's like, nope. And she just like pretends that she doesn't see it and she just like keeps walking. And I'm like, fair, because like at this point, you screaming and crying is not gonna help you. Like she's just like, I just need to get the fuck out of here. But then she comes upon Paul, who is standing in the hall, and he's standing like right in front of the exit door. And so she sits the camera down, and I guess she's just so happy to see a familiar face that she like runs up to him and she wraps her arms around him. But Paul looks crazy. And so knowing what you know about everything that's happened to Paul and how Paul has been for the past couple of days and the way he's reacting to you right now, this would have been a red flag to me, right? Because Paul, he does move. He doesn't move to hug her. He just stands there like a fucking shell. And then once she's done hugging him, Paul walks over and he just slowly picks up the camera. And then he just basically just starts fucking beating Sarah to death with this camera. And you see the blood like shooting everywhere. But she just kind of stood there. As he got the camera, she literally is just standing there watching him and waits for him to beat her to death.
I didn't like her.
I didn't like her either. So the next shot you get, so after he finishes like beating her, he drops the camera on the ground and we just see her lying on the ground and she is like beaten and bloody. She has blood like gushing from her mouth. And we can see Paul's feet just like kind of standing over her, watching her bleed out. And then you kind of see that there's like something, there's like some hooded figure that's like off camera. You hear some noises approaching and they take her away. They like drag her by her feet. And this is like in the footage that we've seen thus far, this is like the big, huge like blood mark on the floor and there's like a drag mark. This is from Sarah. So we know that Sarah actually did not make it out of the house. This is the unexplainable part. Sarah died that night. So then we see Paul. You can see his feet and you can see him bend down and he picks up this big piece of glass and you don't like see him doing it, but you can hear it. He slits his throat and then he drops to the floor, throat slit, and he just like bleeds out there. And this matches that story that we heard from the first responder who said that the first body that they found when they came in was one of the Hell House team members that had their throat slit and it was self-inflicted. So we do see that happening. And so now we're cutting back to present day with dumb fucking Diane, who's arrived at the hotel and she does successfully break in. I know that this goes without saying, but this is a couldn't be me moment. There's a lot of levels of couldn't be me moments in this movie. I mean, some things are just so outrageous. This is one of those things. This is so... Why is she so... Because she told them at the beginning that it's a good thing that like city officials are covering this whole thing up because people just like wouldn't be able to understand like what happened in there. And she got out supposedly, and so she's like feels like she's lucky to be alive, but you're telling them to go in here. They should have thought like, why is she telling us this, right? So we see them, they're entering and there's blood everywhere. And they pass through the kitchen. And I don't know if you noticed this because I didn't notice until a couple of times I went back and watched the scene for like a couple of reasons. But when they first enter the kitchen and they pan the room, there was always like a prop dummy that's like hanging in the doorway. But then when they pan again, did you notice that it's actually like Alex's ghost standing there now? It's not the prop dummy.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. It's like, it happened so quick. But you know, that night, Alex was wearing like a black vest and like some jeans. You see it like when they first pan, it's the dummy with like a flannel shirt on. And then when they pan again, it's Alex standing there in that black vest. And so I was like, that was like kind of creepy. But it's super quick.
I like that.
I like that too. I thought that was a good shot. So Diane wants to go to the basement and there's blood all over the steps. And at this point, this was the smartest thing her cameraman did. He must have learned this from the Joel School of Cameramen because,
Cameraman,
right, he said, absolutely
not
not. Are you stupid?
stupid.
After everything
Everything
we've
you
heard.
heard, you so fucking. It's her personality in this scene. She's just so goddamn like, it's been great. It's just great. And I was
This is so
like,
great.
they gave her a stupid pill and they gave her a lobotomy because she's a different character now.
She's a totally different character, and she's not being like the professional.
Investigative reporter Gail Weathers would have never done this ignorant
No,
shit.
because Gail Weathers knows better, right?
Gail Gail wouldn't have done this. Gail wouldn't have done this at all. She was in the Helen School of all investigative journalists.
Right. And to suggest that you guys go down to the basement, have you lost your fucking mind? So she's like, okay, we don't have to. Because I know the cameraman's like, bitch, I wasn't going to. So as they're wandering through the hotel, Mitchell is trying to call Diane, right? Presumably to warn her about what he's just seen, and she ignores the call. Big mistake. Huge.
Huge.
So then they head upstairs and they're walking around and they see a room and it has 2C on the door. And they're like,
I couldn't believe how stupid
this was very stupid. It's not just that it was like a stupid thing that she did, but you're right in the way that she acted it, because she was like, she sees it and she's like, oh wait, she's like, didn't Sarah say she was staying in room 2C? And the door is locked from the outside.
Y'all are in an abandoned.
You're in an abandoned hotel.
It's a stupid pill she took.
Right, because the cameraman is like, no, don't open that. And so he's like, this is not what we came here for. And she's like, it's what I came here for. And she just like fucking unlocks it. She opens the door and Sarah's sitting there. You've done a lot of stupid things up until this point, right?
It gets too dumb. It gets too
It's
silly.
not believable. This is not reasonable. This is not something that I can accept as a logical thing that somebody would do. You just unlock the door from the outside. Sarah is sitting there. And so she's sitting on the bed and she's facing away from them towards the window. They enter the room. They go into the room and she starts to call out to Sarah. And she's like, Sarah, are you okay? And Sarah turns around and looks at them. And Sarah's obviously dead.
Right.
Obviously been dead for a long time. She has some serious gashes on her face and head because she was beaten to death, right? So this is hence why she responded earlier in the movie that she was like in a better place when Diane asked how she'd been. So this is scary, right? And they turn around to run, but the door slams behind them and locks them in because of fucking course it does. When they turn back around, Sarah is standing up, but there's also two of the hooded figures in the room with them. They attack Diane and the cameraman. The camera falls on the floor. It's like staticky for a moment. And then when it comes back on, the last shot that we get, the room is empty and all we hear is the piano downstairs, and it's playing that same tune that Paul played in the beginning of the movie, that tune that they've been hearing like throughout this haunting. And then the camera cuts. And then we get our final picture of the Hell House crew, and they're all posing together back when they were like still happy.
And alive.
Right. We get some on-screen text that said, to this day, the tragedy at the Abaddon Hotel remains a mystery to the public. And that is how the movie ends. Yay! We did it. So
That was too silly.
her entering the room at that point, I would have preferred they'd seen Sarah. That shit is crazy. It was crazy for her to even be in there. And then you try to run. You see her, you try to run, and then if you're caught on the way out, it was like, yes, your stupidity got you caught, but it wasn't like the utmost stupidity. You know what I mean? Like, you practice no self-preservation through this entire ordeal.
Once they showed us 2C, I was like, why is this movie being weird now? The fucking host started to be a crazy like person, and it was like, it'd be funny if the twist that she's dead, and they go back to it, and then like all fits in the hotel room that she says, and it's just like, okay, but this is almost too silly. This is sillier than Paul not leaving the first time. This was too. I was like, okay, so I know what's about to happen. When she told immediately when they were like, you should try to go back. I was like, oh, well, she's dead. She's like a ghost. I was like, okay, that's not gonna be a twist. It's a ghost. And then I was just like, wow, she really went in to see.
She entered the room.
You opened the door from the outside, and you should have been like, how did you get in here?
But no, she didn't. She was just like, are you okay? Like the scary thing to me should not have been when she turned around and revealed to you that she was dead. The scary thing should have been you unlock this door from the outside and she's fucking in there. That was enough to be like, what's going on here?
Or she unlocked the door, saw her, and was like, how'd you get in here? And the door immediately closed, and then the cameraman ran down the stairs but got caught by Alex at the front door.
That would have been really cool. That would have been really cool.
The movie was going so well. I mean, the characters were unlikable, but we don't really like nobody.
I know, we have a hard time liking certain people.
We don't fuck with people anyway, so like, yeah, we like them. But from that part on, I was like, she took a stupid pill.
Right.
She had to.
Right.
And she was talking, and she was like, well, let's like, are you afraid of ghosts? And I was like, who? I was like, she don't even talk like that. Is she possessed by Alex?
That's my thing too. That was like really unrealistic because you've spent a lot of time, right? You spent so much time doing this documentary thus far. You know that it wasn't like a technical issue, that it wasn't something that malfunctioned. Sarah even has explained to you like these paranormal things were happening. So this is one of those things that we talked about. We've talked about this before. It's the fuck around and find out. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, okay? Like, even if that is not something that you believe, you don't believe that that's what's happening here, that couldn't be how these people died, why would you fuck around and find out? Clearly something happened in this hotel, right?
Right.
What good did it do you to go here? I don't know how you could chalk it up to anything but paranormal, but even if you don't believe, like, you just cannot let yourself believe there's something paranormal, you don't know what the hell happened there. So what is the point of going? Even if it was like a gas leak. Like, are you going to die from a gas leak? Like, just, you don't know. And now you fucked around and found out.
When she saw that 2C, that should have been immediately like,
uh-oh.
That's scary.
That's scary. And her reaction to it didn't make sense. That wasn't realistic.
It was too silly for an investigative journalist or whatever the hell you are. So then it wasn't fun anymore to watch.
Right.
Because now it's just like, ready for it to be over. They gotta do stuff that makes sense.
Right. There has to be some level of realism for us, the audience, to even entertain the idea that we would ever find ourselves in a position like this. Then that is what makes it scary. You know what I mean?
Right.
Alex was not realistic at all. To the very, like, the bitter end, just be like, this, none of this is real. That doesn't make sense.
What do you think? Why did they stay? What was your fan theory?
So let's get to the fun facts, because that's going to come up. So
fun facts.
I know. I know. So the Rotten Tomato score on this movie, it's a 75% critic and a 72% audience, which is like really good.
It is.
The IMDb is a 6.4 out of 10 with 20,000 votes. So as far as like a kill count, I know that we didn't do like a real like point out like all the kills in this movie, but we learn in the beginning, like from news reports, that 15 people were killed in the house. And so that's including the Hell House members. So Alex, Paul, Tony, Sarah, Mac, like those people. And then 10 just like poor, sad tour goers. And then, of course, you have to add to that Diane and her cameraman were killed later. Much deserved. So this is one of the things. So when I learned that there was like a director's cut to the movie, it features some really pivotal scenes, in my opinion. So I like, part of me kind of wishes that we'd watch the director's cut, but I feel like even without a director's cut, a movie needs to make sense. Okay. If it doesn't make sense, then that's poor post-production, in my opinion. So some scenes that we get that are not in the regular version are one thing that is like kind of cool in the basement scene when everything starts to descend into chaos. You actually, and it's maybe they thought that this was like a little silly. This isn't the scene that I think that they should have kept in, but you actually see a hole open up in the floor. And Melissa, like, instead of seeing her like suspended in the air after the two hooded figures unchain her, you actually see her being pulled into this hole. And so that is confirming that Andrew Tully opened this portal to hell in the basement, and now she's being drugged to hell. And so I'll have some more theories on that in a second. But one pivotal scene that they took out that I really do think they should have kept in is the crew actually, like, I think I don't remember like who it was, maybe like Tony and Mac or something. They actually find Alex's notebook, and the notebook is filled with scribblings, like crazy person scribblings, like satanic scriptures, pentagrams, upside down crosses and stuff. And so it's actually showing Alex's state of mind, and it's showing how he's already possessed. And so that would have gone a long way at helping to explain Alex's like nonchalantness towards all the events that are happening here, because it would have also explained like his insistence that they stay here, right? Because it would make sense if they, even if they put it at the end, that after everybody died and the police got out of their stuff, they were going through it and they found Alex's notebook. Just like something, because without like a scene like this, Alex's behavior makes zero sense to us. So the one thing that I was going to say is that apparently in the sequels, Alex came to the hotel way before, like months or like the previous year, to like check out this hotel with nobody else. So apparently the thing that Mac was telling Tony was that Alex had come previously and he made some sort of deal with someone. I think that that deal was with Andrew Tully. I think that Alex has been possessed this entire time. And one of the goals of Andrew Tully and like of this hotel is you want to bring people here because it's like the more people here, the more people you have to do this like, sacrifice, this like satanic ritual. And that's why they're like haunting all of them, but they wait until opening night to actually strike and then just start taking people. And so I think that that is what Mac was expressing to Tony. I don't understand necessarily why that meant that Tony had to stay.
That is the part that like I still don't get. Like, because if you would have told me, I would have left.
That would have assured that I would have left. I think that Andrew Tully actually comes up in the sequels. Like I think he is still around. And so I think that this is the thing, right? This would explain Alex's behavior. I don't think it needed to be a trilogy. The writer did think it needed to be a trilogy, but these are the kind of things that would give this movie like a little bit more substance, right? Because it's like we're so upset because we're like we cannot relate to Alex. We do not like him. He's an asshole. It's not realistic. But I think that Alex is being this way. Like, I don't think that we're supposed to relate to him because I think that Alex is possessed. I think that it's its own thing. Like, Alex has already been taken by the hotel, and it was his job to bring people here. That's why he chose this location 40 miles from the city, 40 miles from any place they'd ever done previous haunted houses in the past. Like, it's just something drew him to this hotel, and it was like basically his job that he made this agreement with Andrew Tully, like, I'm going to bring as many people here as possible to like be sacrificed to this thing. We just don't get any of that information. And so if we take this movie at face value, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired.
It was good. It had scary parts.
There are scary parts. If you watch it in the dark, it's scary.
It was scary parts. This is scary. I was like, oh, good thing I ain't watching in the dark.
I watched it in the dark. The shit is scary. The first time I watched it, I was in the dark and I was by myself because Sebastian was out of town, and I had to sleep with the lights on because I was like, this shit was scary.
The ending took me out. it started to drag at a certain point. But if you want to know if it's a hit or a miss, I think people should watch it.
I
I
mean,
mean,
like,
it ain't
what do you
bad.
say? Do you say hit or miss? You have to pick one.
It's a hit. It's a
Okay.
hit.
I am going to say that it is a hit. I cannot speak to the sequels. I've actually seen many times people saying that the sequels are like dog shit, but I do think like if you watch this as like a standalone movie, if you take it for what it is and you watch it in the dark with the lights off by yourself, I think this shit is scary. I think it's a hit. It's free. You can watch it on Shudder. You can watch it on like Prime if you have that. I think it's on YouTube.
It's on everything. They're like, please watch this fucking movie.
Right. I think it's good. Besides some silly little things that happen, there are things that could be tweaked. Obviously, it's not perfect, but I think for a found footage movie, I thought it was like good. It scared me.
It was definitely one I was like, oh, okay. I'm glad I saw it, but I don't think I'll ever watch it again.
That's fair. So, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you listening.
Right. Bye.
All right. Bye.